Avengers movies are great. They are these awesome ensemble of characters, 2 hours of exciting action set pieces as a group without focusing on individuals all that much, without going too deep into their relationships with each other, except for the one main focus of the movie maybe. But can you imagine every Marvel movie was an Avengers movie? That would mean we barely would be able to experience any real character development due to the sheer amount of people that the spotlight needs to be shared with, boiling down to the reason why Justice League was criticized so much. Well, with the cast of characters growing with each title, Sword Art Online Gameverse is becoming more and more of a Justice League. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, it's me Gamerturk, and on today's episode of my Fixing the Sword Art Online Gameverse series, I will be talking about the problems generated by the vast majority of the characters being used solely as fan service in the games, rather than having their own meaningful little stories. If you're interested, previous episodes were about the endings of Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet and the threat burnout in the gameverse in general. You can watch those episodes by clicking the icon on the upper right corner, but without further ado, let's start the 4th episode, Bloated cast. Sword Art Online main series has always been about focusing on individual character developments as well as the relationships between certain characters in each of their arcs. Well, most people don't realize this because all they care about is the brain-dead and factually wrong quote-unquote reviews of big anime YouTubers to ride on the hate train. Each main arc of Sword Art Online, whether in the light novels or in the anime, has always had a significant focus on character development and their relationships. Aincrad arc was all about shaping Kirito to who he is today, going through a roller coaster of development all affected by major plot points, and eventually getting mentally healed as her relationship with Asuna softens the burden on his shoulders. Fairy Dance, unlike what some people may think, is not an arc about Kirito and Asuna. The main subject of this arc is Leafa and her relationship with Kirito as well as her relationship with Kazuto. Kirito and Asuna are very much side characters in this arc, driving the plot forward, yeah, but Leafa/Sugu remain as the focal point of the entire arc. In Phantom Bullet, Kirito shares the main character slot with Sinon, both going through their very similar emotional issues caused by their past and learning to grow beyond them. Main antagonist of this arc isn't even Deathgun, it's these two characters' past. Deathgun is just a, physical villain for them to defeat. He's just there to bring out the PTSD in these characters out. And last but not least, Mother's Rosario, effectively focusing on Asuna and Yuuki, and once again developing no more than 2 characters at the same time. You can very much think of these 4 main arcs as individual character movies in Marvel's MCU, and think of Ordinal Scale movie as the quote-unquote Avengers of this series, where everybody gets a reasonable amount of spotlight, even Klein. Now, comparing this to the Gameverse, starting with Hollow Fragment, things actually take off in a very promising manner. The Hollow story, in my opinion, the best character development story Gameverse has ever presented us, solely because it actually focuses on developing a single character, that is, Philia. The entire campaign is focused on her turmoil, while Kirito is pretty much a supporting character throughout the story. As a result, we had Philia strongly establish her presence in the Gameverse. She is the one character who we know the most about her psyche and mentality compared to any other Gameverse character, with the exception of Kureha at the time of this video at least. On the other hand, the main campaign of Hollow Fragment is more of a mixed bag on this aspect, as it has 2 short stories within, both of which are stretched very thin due to the amount of floors available. One is an adaptation of the Fairy Dance arc, but compared to the main canon, is not, and to a certain extent cannot be used for Suguha's character development due to how things progress in the Gameverse. The other one is the clearing floors aspect, which barely has any story, as you just clear through floors. Strea is introduced to us in this campaign, but she does not get any sort of character development. She is just introduced as this happy and cheerful person, but also never grows as a character in general. Though I will not be bashing Hollow Fragment because it actually had the right idea there. The main stories overall are very focused on specific characters. Within the main campaign, you won't be seeing all of the cast joining in just for the sole purpose of reminding you they exist by saying a single sentence. That is pretty much pointing out the obvious. However, each of these characters get their own spotlight within the game via side stories that expand upon their personality, sometimes for fan service, yes, but also sometimes for genuine character development, and it's quite surprising that they managed to get things so wrong in the future titles when they already had solved the issue as early as their first game. Lost Song, while focusing mainly on Seven and Rain, does suffer slightly by having all these characters be somewhat involved in the main campaign, but in Lost Song's defense, it is the entire premise of Lost Song. Kirito and Co effectively racing against Seven's Shamrock beating the expansion, so it does make sense that pretty much the entire cast is constantly on the journey with you. And they also try switching things around by not having certain characters be logged in at certain points in the game, actually providing focus to a subset of characters at certain points. The writing overall also never tries highlighting individuals in these cases, but rather focuses on the group dynamic, effectively making the crew the protagonist of the game, rather than singling out individuals as main characters. But with two more main characters introduced, it just, created more opportunities for things to go wrong. And HollowRealization, my favorite Sword Art Online game, is where things start actually going wrong. This is where the large cast starts feeling wonky, as every single character decides to join in on the adventure and constantly try to remind you that they are there, in fact, part of the main cast. You seriously do have a problem in your hands when you try to take 10 to 15 characters that were created as side characters and shove them into an adventure disguised as main characters. What happens is not that they suddenly become main characters, it's that the main adventure becomes a whole lot less focused on the task at hand. You see, the somewhat bloated cast was present in Phantom Bullet in the main series as well, but the main difference there was that the main campaign was still completely focused on Kirito and Sinon. The others were effectively isolated outside of the main story and mostly worked as exposition material or for neat little character moments, which is perfectly fine. But in HollowRealization and the Gameverse, most characters just pop up to say one or two sentences and then disappear again until the writers decide that they didn't speak for a while, which brings me back to a point I made in the previous video. If it doesn't have a purpose, you're probably better off just leaving it out. It just breaks the pacing of the story overall just to have multiple characters who are just there to point out the obvious multiple times. I can sympathize that all these characters do care about Premiere and Tia, but man, this is just one of those bad examples on how to structure your overall story. In the end, the main campaign becomes a soup of about 20 quote-unquote main characters, while only one character has some sort of a development, which doesn't even pay off in any way, as I mentioned in the previous video. I say 20 quote-unquote main characters, but in contrast to Lost Song, which also had a similarly sized cast, HollowRealization does not shift them in and out properly, which results in what looks and acts like 20 main characters turning into one main character, that is Tia, two supporting characters, Premiere and Kirito, and about 17 useless characters in reality. If they would have just done what they did with Lost Song and only have certain characters contribute at certain points in the story, due to these characters also having real lives, the game would be a whole lot more natural. For example, one chapter of the campaign has Kirito, Premiere, Asuna and Leafa as the cast, the next chapter has Kirito, Liz, Zeliska and Sinon, etc., cycling the characters and giving them purpose within the story accordingly, rather than reducing most of these characters into useless filler character category. And once again, it bugs my mind that they tried shoehorning in all these characters to the main campaign when they all have great opportunities to shine in their respective character events. All of HollowRealization's side stories focus on around 2-3 characters at a time and around a theme for the character development. It expands upon their personality and makes them grow as characters quite brilliantly. It's all about Zeliska admiring Lisbeth, for example, as a role model and trying to be more like her, Philia trying to support Leafa through her hard times, Sinon facing her reality due to Shinkawa Kyoji. And then there are also solo character quests in the form of heroing quests, providing a neat twist to the character motivations as they all try something new for themselves based on their life goals. All the characters I mentioned above, outside of the main and supporting characters, could have been cut from the main campaign, and they would not suffer in any way, as the character events in HollowRealization offers more character development than these characters have had in the previous 2 games combined. But you know what's worse than having characters shoehorned in where they don't belong? It's when characters require other characters to become useless for a moment so they can have a chance to shine. It's a natural reaction on the writer's side when multiple characters share pretty much the same traits. So for one character to shine based on their trait, naturally the other character with the same trait must either be nullified or at the very least lessened in the process. Axel World vs Sword Art Online is the one game that immensely suffers from this due to cramming about 50 characters into the game without properly structuring their story. That is essentially why Avengers Infinity War structured its story by sending multiple characters to different quests. In a massive adventure, these kinds of issues are to be expected when characters share certain similar traits, so the writers need to structure their storytelling accordingly. Not everybody needs to be involved with every aspect of the story, they just need to focus on what they are good at. That is what Axel World vs Sword Art Online should have done, having the full cast at major story climaxes, sure, but splitting the cast into groups in times where they needed to solve multiple issues. They also made a total blunder out of many character events due to excessive fan service, but hey, this game is not canon, so it doesn't really matter at this point. Meanwhile, Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet more or less does try solving this issue. Throughout the exposition parts, Fatal Bullet is still way too crowded with characters. Count the lines certain characters have throughout the main campaign, and you'll realize they did not have more than 10 sentences in their portfolio, and about 99% of what they say is actually fluff, where only Kirito from the main cast speaks some meaningful stuff. It's very obvious that the writers had no idea how to shoehorn these characters into the story, and that this was the best they could accomplish. At points in the story where it actually matters though, the cast is incredibly focused, giving things a proper sense of structure. First cutscene, it's just the protagonist Kureha, Kirito and Asuna. When we assault the SPC Flügel, it's only protag, Arfa, Kureha and Kirito. In the finale, it's just protag, Arfa, Zeliska, Kureha and Itsuki, the only characters that matter to what is happening on the screen. In Kirito mode, despite that being a train wreck for other reasons, the story overall is all about Kirito, Sinon and Deathgun. There is no fluff going on for the sake of shoehorning multiple characters, and that is how it should be, considering these games offer enough opportunities to give meaningful screen time to the characters via side events. Whenever I say the Gameverse cast is over bloated, everybody in the SAO Reddit get triggered, mainly because, they are very defensive towards criticism in general due to the stupid hate train that's going on, but also because they believe my solution is all about getting rid of these characters. But no, it's all about giving meaning to the appearances of these characters instead, and, not shoehorning them in where they simply do not belong. Heck, just cut the cast in half and introduce the ones that were cut as post-game characters and give them meaningful events that way, without, shoehorning them into the main campaign. That's what Akuria has done with Seven and Rain, introducing them in the post-game free DLC Warriors of the Sky. They had nothing to do in the main campaign or the DLC campaign, but they had great character events at their disposal and their appearance was actually meaningful that way. Kizmel was just a side character. Alice and Yu-Gi-Oh were DLC free characters in HollowRealization. Seven and Sumeragi, as well as Lux, Sachi, Yuna, all were additional unlockable characters in Axel World vs Sword Art Online. Yuuki was a New Game Plus character in Hollow Fragment. If the Sword Art Online game writers are not sure as to how a character can fit into the main story, they should just double down on what they have achieved so wonderfully already. Post-game character events. I mean, they will have to do it eventually one way or another due to the impending Alicization game, so why not practice it with the next year's game, whatever it may be. Actually, I am going to be making that speculation as to what the next game is going to be, but that is going to be an entirely different video. This one here marks the end of my Fixing the Sword Art Online Gameverse series for the near future. I have another series already planned along the lines of what Sword Art Online Gameverse did right that I never mentioned before to gauge the unbiased response to my criticism from my community, which resulted in me blocking somebody on the SAO subreddit who I considered a friend, but other than that, I am quite happy with the response. There are people who agree with me, those who expand upon the ideas in the comments, and then there are those who respectfully disagree and bring out counter arguments, which makes me really happy because this non-toxic discussion environment is what I hope to achieve on my channel, and I was really glad to see all of you respond without any bad behavior. But I will talk more about that probably next week in a channel update video, a concept I haven't done for quite a while now. But here we are. If you enjoyed the video, do hit that like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload similar videos. If you enjoy my content in general, supporting me on patreon.com/Gamerturk helps me be more creative with these types of videos and lets me act freely from YouTube's stupid content ID system. You can also find me on Twitter at Gamerturk95 and on facebook.com/Gamerturk. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.